He was sitting at his desk. He had won a great victory with God because he had answered correctly when God came to him and said, "What do you want?" Long life, big kingdom, money, wisdom, all these things, and he had chosen wisdom. But every single person, when you get older in life, starts going through the thought process of, how do I keep my kingdom going? How do things survive? How do I go from where I am to the next step? How do I go through these rough times when things don't feel right and things aren't good? How do I become successful after the battles? Well, invariably, every single individual gets past all of that and they become way older in life, and they now start dealing with, how do I hand this to my children? I've lived my whole life. I'm now at an age where it's starting to sink in, I'm not going to be here forever. And you get to that age where all of a sudden you realize that your 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old has already lived the amount of years that you have left. And Solomon started thinking this. He started going, my kingdom is going to get over for me, but I want to be able to hand it off to my son. How do I hand it off to him? What advice do I give him? What I would tell him of how to survive, and if you've been with us, and I know that a bunch of you have been on vacation, it's exciting to have you back. There are a whole other crew that's gone on vacation, and we're thrilled about that, even though we hate you. Had a few of them that told me they drove 25 hours to get back from Florida. I felt bad for them, but then I didn't feel bad for them. I felt they deserved the suffering. But he said, how do I help my child carry on? So he wrote this, an introduction before a story. He said, follow my advice, my son. Always treasure my commands. You're going to get old like me one day. You're not going to be the young kid anymore. You're going to be older, and you're going to have children of your own, and your children are going to have children, and you're going to be in my world. And this kingdom is going to be yours, and everything that goes on in it, you're going to have. Follow my advice. Treasure my commands. Obey my commands and live. And if you're looking at it in this version, there's an exclamation point there. If you go read this in the Hebrew, it's exactly like grabbing somebody, pulling them into you and saying, listen to me. Do what I tell you to do and you'll live. Guard my instructions as you guard your own eyes. Tie them on your fingers as a reminder. Write them deep within your heart. Love wisdom like a sister. Make insight a beloved member of your family. What was he trying to say to his son? He said, I want to give you some rules. This is how you survive. You're not going to survive the mayhem that's coming, the stuff that's coming, the rough things that are coming. You're not going to get through the hard times. You're not going to get through the times that everyone questions everything that goes on and says you can't possibly be being blessed. How are you going to get through this? He said, I want to give you some rules. Rule number 1, these words that I'm saying to you have to consume some areas of your life. They have to consume your focus. Where I use the word focus, write the words beside it, worldview. They have to consume your focus. Keep my commands, and I changed over to the New American Standard Version. In this particular case, I think it's closer to the original Hebrew. Keep my commands and live, and my teaching as the apple of your eye. Some of you are old enough, you've heard the expression apple of your eye. It is literally the round circle part in the middle of your eye that if you walk up to a person and you look down into their face and you look in their eyes, you'll see yourself looking back at yourself because it reflects. That's what they call the apple of the eye. What means something to you, what you're looking at. He said, I want it to consume your focus, everything about you, everything that you do, your worldview, if you will. You're either a positive person or a negative person. You're either one of those people that when something goes down, you look at it through a positive scope. When something goes down, you look at it through a negative sense. He said, I want my words to consume that part of your life. Secondly, I want it to consume your actions. He said that I want you to bind it on your fingers, just like we wear a ring. They would take something and tie it around their finger as a reminder. He said, I want you to make sure that every single time you reach out and put your hands on something, every time you involve your hands in something, every time there's an action going on in your life, I want these words to dominate and dictate what's going on in that action. That you don't cross it. I can't help it. I preached this last night, and late last night, I was watching a preview for a movie that's coming out, a war movie, true story about a young man that went to war in World War II but refused to touch a gun and was almost court-martialed, walked onto the battlefield with no weapon, and what he did on that battlefield became part of America's history. The words that they used in that video presentation were powerful. The young woman that was talking to him was doing what everyone does. You have values and morals and ethics, things that you live in your life that you won't cross. You're like, I'm sorry, there are certain things I'll do, but I'm not doing that. And those I'm not doing that are going to get tested. And she looked at him and basically said, why can't you do what they're asking? And he looked at her and he said, how would I live with myself? Well, I'm sorry, all of you guys and gals that are in this room, in this culture that we live in, a lot of times there's not even a line anymore. And so me looking at you and saying that there's something that's an action in your life that we want counsel to not cross it. Thirdly, he said, I want it to affect your desires. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Just like you've got something that you look at that reminds you of what you're doing, I want you to chisel this into your soul. I want you to make this so much a part of you that you will walk through anything you're dealing with and not go against that. I want it to become so much a part of you. And he said, along with that, number 2, I want you to have the wisdom. You have to make wisdom, I'll get it right, you have to make wisdom and insight your family. Say to wisdom, you're my sister. Call understanding your intimate friend. I had a real hard time with that word intimate friend. It reminds me of things like my buddy, my pal. I even thought of using the expression my wingman, but the problem with my wingman is that's become a bar term for single guys, and so don't use wingman anymore. I want us to be able to say that this wisdom is so much a part of me that it's like my sister. It's like my companion in life that I've chosen as a friend. That we're just beyond buddies. We can hardly do anything without each other. I want wisdom and insight to be like that in your life. But he said, thirdly, you have to know your weaknesses. You have to know where you're weak. Okay, here's the hard part. Things always happen in my life that I'm like, God, why are you choosing to allow this to take place now? I lost a dear friend last night. Diana meant a lot in my world. And I'm probably just like every single one of you. Emotions are kind of like an ocean, you know what I mean? Just waves out, waves in, waves out, waves in. And one moment I'm just there, and the next moment I'm losing it like a little kid. I have preached my mom's funeral. Laura Woody, that I loved with all of my heart, I preached her funeral. Adored certain people, preached their funerals. I've been able to reach in and grab a switch and turn it on and off. I had 3 daughters that I did their weddings. A lot of daddies trying to do their daughter's wedding turn into a blubbering fool. I grab a switch, shut it off, and think the thought, thank God she's gone. I'm not having to deal with her anymore. Just kidding, dear. So preaching this message this morning, it's a bear. So I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to answer it inside. How many of you have a weakness? See, my southern expressions, I'm your stinking pastor. I can't stand up here and preach to you about everybody else's weaknesses. I know a bunch of your weaknesses. I've watched you in action. But I can't do that. I can't make my sermon Bob Kelly's weaknesses. I can't stand up here and talk about his issues. I can't stand up here and talk about Ron's weaknesses. I can't deal with my kids. I mean, I raised them. I was there. I've seen everything about them. I can't stand in front of you and go, Zach's got this issue, and Whitney's got this issue, and Brandon's got this issue. I can't do that. So the only life I get to do is my own. And when you stand up in front of people and talk about your weaknesses, some of you are new. You didn't know me back when I weighed 400 pounds. A few of you have seen pictures, and you're like, no, that's not Pastor Frank. Yes, I wasn't just big. I made big look little. I was a big boy. But one of my main weaknesses I talk about is a struggle all my life with anger. And you know the problem when you open your mouth and you say, I struggle with anger, you know how many people go, that's nice. Do you know how many times the rest of your life people walk up and go, oh, don't say that, don't say that. He'll hurt you. I have people in this church that go, oh, you don't want to ever see Pastor Frank upset. And they have never seen me upset. They just have some view in their head because they knew someone else that was like that. So I only have me. And my weaknesses and who I am, you got your own. And what I'm going to say, yeah, you can get upset at me and throw a Bible at me or do whatever. That's your weakness. It's like some of you have never learned to shut your fat mouth. You live in a world of gossip. You talk about everybody. You're destructive. You're like a poison. And yet if someone looked at you and said, you have a problem with gossip, you'd go, oh, no, I don't. But then 5 minutes later, you'd be talking about the person who said that to you. And so when I read this verse, when I go, you must know your weaknesses, let these words protect you from an affair with an immoral woman, from listening to the flattery of a promiscuous woman. Some of you go, oh, wait, why are women getting a bad rap here? What about men? Okay, change the stinking words. Let them protect you from an affair with an immoral man, from listening to the flattery of a promiscuous man. You go, I don't have a problem with either one of those. Great. Let them protect you from an affair with a donut, from listening to the flattery of the idiot at Tim Hortons. A burrito, I don't care. We get all stuck in things. I have to preach this message. Listen, I have to preach this message from a perspective of a daddy talking to his son, who the daddy's family's got a problem. And the problem wasn't Bavarian cream chocolate-covered donuts. It was sex. If you don't want your kid hearing this, send them to class. He, Solomon, had to take his pen and lay it down. I see him getting up from his big mahogany desk and walking over and opening the doors and stepping out onto the porch area, get a hold of the rail and looking up to heaven and saying, God, it all started with my daddy, and it went through my brothers and my life. And I don't want the problem that's been in my family to destroy my son. My daddy, David, how many of you grew up in church? They grew up in church. Did you hear the story of David and Goliath? Remember the story of little David? I told you this before. I saw it on the little flannel thing that all the teachers used, a little flannel glass. Had a little bitty picture of David in a little skirt. I didn't like the skirt when I was in Texas, okay? You know, there he was in his little skirt with his little slingshot, and here's this gigantic character named Goliath. And they put him on there, and they told all of us little kids the story about little David came out onto the battlefield, and he looked at the giant, and he saw him there screaming his threatenings, and he was like, God's people are being offended, and I will take this pagan down. That's the story I heard. I heard the great story. And he stood up there in his man stance, you know, and cut the head off. And we as little kids, we were going to charge hell with a water bucket when we walked out of there. I didn't hear the real story. I didn't hear that David was a young shepherd and Jesse told him to go out and take care of his brothers because they'd been there for 40 days. He had 3 brothers and his daddy was missing them. Daddy was worried about him. And so he took his little son and sent him to him and said, Davy, if you get there and if there's all kind of problems and all kind of things start happening, you drop the food and run. Not knowing that little Davy was going to wind up standing in the middle of the battlefield fighting something that looked like a monster from hell. But see, the story I missed that they never told is that when little Davy walked out onto the battlefield, there was a group of guys standing there, and he heard the giant mouthing off, and as he stood there, he was like, and the guys turned around and said, hey, did you hear they upped the ante? They said if somebody defeats that giant, you're going to get a really big reward. You get any one of the king's daughters that you want, and you never have to pay taxes again. How many of you would fight a giant for never having to pay taxes again? Forget the other woman and all the money. Just to not pay taxes, I would be doing really great. And little Davy looks up and goes, women? Money? You're going down, boy. And if you go, oh, no, you're making a big deal out of this. How many of you have noticed in the Bible that when God speaks to us, he doesn't do it once. He does it 2 or 3 times because we're all dense. So if you read the verses in there, it doesn't go that he went women and money. It goes, and after he heard that, his brothers showed up and they went, what are you arrogant whatever doing here? You know, you're in here trying to get out of here. And he ignored his brothers and went, hey, can you say that again? Did you say any woman I want and no taxes and a big reward? I went, yeah. They went into a third conversation. He ignored that conversation and asked the same question again. And so when little David stepped up to the thing and started swinging the thing, he didn't go, for women and money. Had to look good. He was at church. He went, for God and babes and bucks. Because I'm a shepherd and I'm tired of looking at sheep. Do you know how long I'm at to work to get a woman like that? And if you go through David's life, every single child, all of Solomon's brothers, you go by the line. Baby 1, 2, 3, 4. Solomon was number 4 in line to be king. And every single one of his brothers got killed over sex. Every single one of them died because of sex. One wanted to have an affair with his half-sister. David had 7 wives. How many of you are like me, guys, that you can barely handle the one woman you've got? I don't know how you handle 7 women. There would be suicide in my house. They would find a note with my body. I wouldn't kill myself, but they'd kill me. I've never understood these guys that want to be married to more than one woman. I got married, and just like your wife, she informed me of every stupid thing I've ever done in my whole life. You imagine being married to 7 women, they could agree on every stupid thing you've done in your life? So needless to say, he had a bunch of sisters who were half-sisters, wound up raping one, and his brother wound up killing him over it. Every brother died. Solomon became king. And he sat down and he looked at his family. This is called being honest. He looked at his family and said, we have a problem. I want this problem to go away. I want to quit doing this. How do you do it? If you have your Bible with you, I'm going to read from Proverbs 7. I'm going to read almost the whole thing because he gives this introduction to say, son, pay attention to me. To say, boy, I love you. And you're going to have some things happen in your life that you're not going to understand. And because you're going to be in the position that you're going to be in, I want to give you the secret to how you live through it. He gave him the introduction, and then it picks up going in verse 6. While I was at the window of my house, looking through the curtain, I saw some naive young men, and one in particular who lacked common sense. He was crossing the street near the house of an immoral woman, strolling down the path by her house. It was at twilight in the evening as deep darkness fell. The woman approached him, seductively dressed and sly of heart. If you've got your Bible open, or you just want to write it so you can look at it later, chapter 7, verse 10. It's probably the orneriest thing I'll say in the message this morning, and I know one or two of you ain't going to dig it. That's too bad. I'm your pastor, and I love you. The woman approached him seductively dressed and sly of heart. If you've never understood what sly of heart means, it means she dressed like a tramp for a reason. When you get dressed in the morning, ladies, why do you dress the way you do? If you feel the need to expose your body, what is the purpose?
Well, men should learn to control themselves.
Is that what you say to the people at Tim Hortons over a donut? Guys, why do you dress the way you dress? Do you do it to accent your muscles? Why? I'm 58 years old. I don't have any muscles to accent anymore. I was over at Walmart the other day. You ever got on Facebook and seen all the stupid pictures of idiots at Walmart? I was at Walmart the other day. I turned and I looked at this guy, and I'm sorry if you're this ethnicity. I'm not trying to be rude. He was an Italian dude, an older Italian brother, which means older than me. And he came walking down the thing. His shirt was unbuttoned to his navel. Old white hair was everywhere. Jewelry on all his fingers, chains everywhere, walking like this. And all I could think was, please shoot that and put it out of its misery, okay? And I'm sorry, but have you ever got dressed and asked yourself, why am I doing this? You got it? Thank you. So again, if you go, I don't like the woman's side, okay, put a guy in there. The man approached her, seductively dressed, trying to show his biceps, and sly of heart. Were you making fun of my muscle thing I did? Was that what you're laughing about over there? That hurt. Verse number 11. She was the brash, rebellious type, never content to stay at home. She is often in the streets and markets, soliciting in every corner. She threw her arms around him and kissed him, and with brazen look she said, I just made my peace offerings and fulfilled my vows. And if you've never studied the Jewish culture, you have no idea what that means. Study that sometime. It's in verse 14. You're the one I was looking for. I came out to find you, and here you are. My bed is spread with beautiful blankets, with colored sheets of Egyptian linen. I've perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let's drink of our fill of love until morning. Let's enjoy each other's caresses. For my husband is not home. He's away on a long trip. He has taken a wallet full of money with him and won't return until later this month." So she seduced him with her pretty speech and enticed him with her flattery. He followed her at once, like an ox going to the slaughter. He was like a stag caught in a trap. If you've never heard the word stag, it means like a deer. He was like a deer caught in a trap, awaiting the arrow that would pierce its heart. He was like a bird flying into a snare, little knowing it would cost him his life. He said to his son, "I want to give you a way to avoid failure. I want to make it where you won't lose like I did." Here's the secret. Number one, forget the destination. Don't even go that direction. Forget the destination. Don't even go that direction. I saw some naive young man, and one in particular who lacked common sense. He was crossing the street near the house. Circle the word near. He was crossing the street near the house of an immoral woman, strolling down the path, circle the word path, by her house. Proverbs 7:24 and 25. "So listen to me, my sons," plural, not just one, "and pay attention to my words. Don't let your heart stray away toward her. Don't wander down her pathway." 1 Thessalonians 5:22. Stay away from every kind of evil. You want to stay out of trouble? You want to defeat the thing that you're doing? Stay away from the issue. Don't even walk in that direction. You struggle with alcohol, you struggle with drugs, stay out of a bar. You're married and you've struggled with having an affair, you've struggled with the temptation, don't go near a bar. Don't walk into a place where it's a hotbed of people trying to find out who they can go to bed with at night. Stay out of it. You struggle with an eating issue, Tim Hortons is of the devil. Don't walk in there. You struggle with that kind of issue, don't watch food porn. How many of you know what food porn is? It's the cooking channels. Notice you watch food porn. The gravy runs off the side of the plate. It's like some woman going, blah, 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 blah. Your stomach goes, oh. A few of you sitting here right now are going, that's disgusting. I said food porn and your stomach went. All you had was a snack bar on the way to church this morning. You ever drive by a restaurant and it says all you can eat? It's a food porn house. Quit doing commentary on my sermons, okay? I got half of you sitting here going, oh yeah, forget the destination. Don't even go that direction. You want to stay out of trouble? Don't go there. I told you I've struggled with stupidity in my life, with upsettedness. I don't go to Meijer's grocery store. Every time I go there, idiocism happens. I go to Walmart. There's just as many nutcases in Walmart as I am. I stay away from Meijer's. I walked into Meijer's one time, and there was a little lady standing behind me. I was there to return pop bottles. I drank Diet Pepsi. My wife drank some Coke product. I'd gotten the cart out and put all of the bottles that we were returning into it. But I didn't put the Pepsi things in one thing and the Coke things in another. I just threw them in there because I'm a man. And I'm standing in line waiting to turn them in. The way the system used to be, you had to give them to the guy there. And this little old lady standing behind me. And she leans over. And for those of you that struggle with anger issues, have you ever noticed how many stupid people there are in this world? And she looks around me and wants to lecture me on the fact that I had not organized the Pepsis in one bag and the Coke in the other. She wanted to know what was wrong with me. I wanted to lovingly pick her up and put her in the bottles. Robin and I were driving to Washington, D.C. to go to a conference and to see the Kellys because we like the Kellys, so, you know. We're on our way there and we're driving down Highway 8090. And we're cruising in our vehicle, and this truck does something weird. I got to move over to get out of his way so I can continue down the road and do what Jamel, you were driving back from Florida, so you know idiots on the road, right? And I'm doing my driving, and I do the move. I look, I see the guy back there, and I get over like I'm supposed to. But for some reason in his brain, I didn't get over the way I was supposed to, fast enough or whatever. And you know you're in trouble when the person gets up on your back end and you can't see their lights anymore. All you can see is their mustache. And his mouth was going 900 miles an hour, and he's doing something with his middle finger, and he's just letting me know him, his wife, his kids, everybody in the vehicle are just irate at me. And he gets up beside me. He's in a minivan. Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to look bad in a minivan? Amen? He's in a stupid little minivan, and he pulls up beside me, and he's flipping me off. And his wife's giving me the eye, and I'm one of these loving, caring, sensitive people, so I look over at him and go, which didn't make him any happier. And he zips around me, and he starts down the road, and I look up, and he had the Christian fish on the back of his minivan. And Bob, I bet you anything, he's headed to Washington, D.C. to the same thing we are. I spent the whole stinking time at that conference. 1.1 million people, I'm going. Because if I find him, I'm sending him to hell, straight where we are, man. And I want you to know, and I say this, and please don't think I'm dangerous, okay? But you can ask my wife. People pull up beside me and do something like that to me. I always felt the need to follow them closely. Any of you have that same stupid problem in life? Yeah. I always felt the need to get dumb, and I'd always have to listen to Robin. Frank, what is wrong with you? I always said the same thing. I'm just like every dumb man out there. I'd get following my wife and go, what is wrong with you? And I always say the same thing. What are you mad at me for? Why don't you be mad at them? Of course, her answer was much smarter because they're not trying to kill me right now. You are. I finally reached a point in life where I went, this is stupid. Don't go there. Just let him go down the road. Let him be a fool, and I'm not trying to be crass. Just let him kill somebody else. I don't need to ruin my life over their stupidity. And whatever your weakness is, you don't need to ruin your life over someone else's stupidity. Just let it go. Number 2, don't fight against temptation. Run from it. That first word, run from sexual sin. No other sin so clearly affects the body as this one does. For sexual immorality is a sin against your own body. Run from it. Pastor John Baker, a gentleman out in California, says you hang around the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. My dad used to say it this way. You hang around dogs with fleas, you're going to get fleas. Don't fight against temptation, run from it. The thing that you're struggling with, run. I used to be a Monty Python fan all the time. Favorite line in the movie is, run away! I believe it's the greatest secret in life. You just run. You go, I can hang in there. Number 3, never ever assume you have it beaten. You are one stupid person away from being an idiot. That makes sense? That's all it takes. That thing that you struggle with, one person saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong stuff. Chuck, who I care for deeply, is a new friend in my life. His sister, the other day, lost a baby. I believe it was their first baby they were trying to have, right? Lost a baby. They'd already been forewarned by the doctor. She had to go through that whole miscarriage process. How many of you women in this room have ever had a miscarriage? Raise your hand. You ever had a miscarriage? How many of you women that have had a miscarriage had some stupid idiot friend say something to you really dumb? Robin and I's first baby we lost. People that look at you and go, well, you know, you'll be able to have more. Or, well, I guess God just didn't want that baby in your life. We had 4 children, and after 4 kids, we had a miscarriage. Well, I guess God just didn't want you to have any more kids. You ever just want to smack somebody? You're like, gracious, how do people get so insensitive? Never assume you have it beaten. Never assume that you can stand and not fall. Pride goes before destruction, and haughtiness before a fall. Have you ever memorized a verse in the book of Proverbs? That's Proverbs 16:18. That's a good one to learn. 1 Corinthians 10:12. If you think you're standing strong, be careful not to fall. If you read the whole context of that verse, if you're working with somebody and you're trying to help them and you're in the middle of something that they're struggling with, watch your struggle because you could fall. Before I close on point 4 and 5, does everything I'm saying up to this point make sense to everybody? You got it? Okay, here goes. There's 2 biggies in my life that have helped me forever. Number 4, the end is always painful. The end is always painful. They talked about tying something on your finger. I wear a ring. This ring to people says, I'm married. This ring does not make me married. What makes me married is the covenant I said with my mouth, the vows that I made. That's my covenant, my bond, my word. This is a reminder. This is not a reminder to other people. This is a reminder to me. I know single guys walk up and see some pretty girl and go, oh Lord, please don't let there be a ring on that finger. I understand that. But this is to remind me that I'm married. This is to remind me that every single action I do in my life can affect her and can affect, don't you dare miss what I'm about to say, and can affect my children. That the life that I live in front of them, I don't want divorce being the norm for their life. I want them to be able to look at me and say, my daddy lived his word, his bond. He kept his covenant. Is it always easy? Respectfully, dear, I love her with everything inside of me and would die for her in an instant, and she drives me nuts. And I'm not talking about, oh, she's just so exciting. I'm talking about, I want to kill her. Everyone married, say amen. Everyone who understands exactly what I'm talking about, say amen. Isn't it amazing how one Sunday you sat in church, bumping up against each other, holding hands? Liana's just all over Bob over there this morning, just so in love. And next Sunday, she'll be 5 chairs over, sitting there with all the kids in between her, looking at him. We get home, I'm showing you how bad a Dutch woman can be, boy. Amen, Bob? I mean, it's amazing. And we live in marriage like that. I just adore you. I love you. I hate you. And so sitting down and saying, because of my love for her, this is my reminder. That no, not all times might be good, that things might be hard, that there might be a struggle. But this reminds me, and it not only reminds me for her, it reminds me for the little people that follow me in life. It reminds me of the little ones that come behind me that look at me. It reminded me of my life when I sat down and said, what's my anger doing to my little people? I started struggling with my world and the way I was acting and what I was doing. One of the big areas I struggled in was I sat there and I said, I'm going to pass this off to my kids. What are you passing off to your kids? Oh, well, my kids are so busy watching cartoons and chewing gum out from under the chairs, they don't notice anything. Your kid that's picking his nose nonstop, eating the gum out from under the chair, sharing the dog food at the bowl, they hear every single thing you say and do. And I'm about to say something I don't want you to miss. It'll bug a few of you, but I don't want you to miss this. I've watched divorce all of my life. Don't miss this. I've watched divorce all of my life. 2 kids, mom and dad decide they can't live with each other anymore. She's got him one time, he's got him the other time. When he's got him, he talks about mom like she's a dog. When she's got him, she talks about dad like he's an animal. There's always one parent that runs their mouth more than the other parent. I want to give you a principle I never want you to forget. Daddy, while you're mouthing off about mom, your little children are hearing every word you say. And while you think that that's okay, that it's not going to cause an issue, they're going to grow up, and the parent who runs their mouth the most is the parent they're going to hate. You think that it's not affecting, it's not doing anything? I'll give you another area. Gossip. You think it's okay to talk about people and to say rude things about people in front of your children? When your children grow up someday, they'll hate your guts. Because they will look at you and all the things you said about people will be in their head of who you are and what you are. I had a friend in the church, a 92-year-old lady. Her pastor said almost the same thing in his sermon. Her and I were talking. She looked at me and she said, I heard him preach that 3 years ago. She goes, I wish somebody would have told me that when I was a young woman. She said, I was the jewel of gossiping about people in the church. I looked at her and I said, what happened? She said, my children, all 3 of them, have not talked to me for 20 years. The end is always painful. You can work out and live on your eating program successfully. You mess it up one afternoon. You go out and have that cream-filled donut one afternoon and watch how bad you feel after you put it in your mouth and swallowed it. Watch what happens. So biggest secret I learned in my Christian life to deal with Frank, what I do, my actions, my push, my desire, how it affects the people that follow me. And number 5, in closing, form bonds with strong believers. And I added this in the other sermon. I feel impressed to do the same thing. Form bonds with strong believers. Circle strong believers. You ought to make it a point to become a strong believer, so that people want to form bonds with you. Run from anything that stimulates youthful lust. Run from it. Instead, pursue righteous living. Secret for how to be successful in struggling with what you're struggling with. Run from anything. Pursue righteous living, faithfulness, love, and peace. You can't just run from something. You have to pursue something else. Enjoy the companionship of those who call on the Lord with pure hearts. Enjoy the companionship of those that love God and care for the Lord. Enjoy being around people that control themselves and act like they should. Enjoy being around people that don't feel the need to talk about other people and to be negative about other people. Enjoy being around people that look at their life and think regularly, what does God think about what I'm doing? Proverbs 7:24, so listen to me, my sons, and pay attention to my words. Listen to what I'm telling you. I want you to not fail. Pay attention to what I say to you. With your head bowed and your eyes closed, Father, Please take this morning and use it in each one of our lives. Use it to help us grow. God, just like me, every person in this room fights a battle and struggles. Father, help each person sitting here to know I'm not trying to be condemning. I'm not trying to make them feel bad. Father, I love each person sitting in this room with all of my heart. And I want to see them grow and change. And I want to be their friend, that I support them and they support me. I want to be there to walk through hard times. And God, I pray that you would just take the words that have gotten said this morning and use them in a very powerful way. We love you, we adore you, and we ask this in your holy name, Jesus. Amen.